Okay, let's start with the good news and the bad news. The bad news is America is now up to about 200,000 people died from this, which kind of sucks. The good news, if you want to look at it that way, is America is very soon to lose its crown as the most infected country in the world. They're looking at getting on for 7 million cases in America. India is fairly close behind, but the thing is, America is currently down to about 50,000 new cases per day, whilst India is up at about 100,000 new cases per day, which means, you're only looking at 10 days to 2 weeks, and India will be the most infected country in the world, with its cases not even slightly slowing down. And with repositories like this of the virus in the world, this isn't going to go away anytime soon. Which brings us on to. So it turns out Europe is spiking everywhere at the moment. This is going big wave, second wave, big time. There are some redeeming features to it, which I'll come to in a second. So you take a look at places like Spain, and this is not looking so good. Now you'd have to bear in mind with all of these things that early on, right, you scroll the clock back to the sort of April-y type times, detection was much worse than it is now, maybe by a factor of, I don't know, 3 to 5 or something like that. So what you've either got to multiply the cases here by about a factor of 3 or divide these by a factor of 3. Either way, this will give you a significantly different shaped curve. So even though in places like all throughout Europe they look very similar, it's probably not as bad now as it was at its worst. But the interesting thing is the deaths haven't spiked as much yet. So you take a look at France, he's doing similarly. So UK is not looking so bad at the moment, but with a doubling rate of every 3 days, you can be up here in a week's time without even breaking a sweat. And just to show that that's not hyperbole, let me show you where I am at the moment. I'm in Czechia. What do you reckon Czechia looks like? No data. Yes, there is. It's not that bad. Czechia has just had 3,000 cases in a single day. That's not Czechia. Oh, don't give me that crap. Okay, I'm going to have to refresh. It spiked to 3,000 cases in a day. When it was at its worst, when everyone was doing the lockdown stuff, it was 100 a day or so. So something like. Okay, we'll have to do it on another site. This is what Czechia looks like at the moment. There's total cases. Yeah, there you go, 3,000 cases per day. So this can be up like crazy. And there's about 10 million people in Czechia. So about 300 million in America. You got to time these by about 30 to compare it to America. So if this were America, we would be up at about 100,000 cases per day, which means that the country I'm in at the moment is significantly more infected than the United States. We'd be up here somewhere at about 100K. But, if you take a look throughout all of Europe, this was my big concern early on, is after it looks like you've got it under control and everyone just gets completely complacent about it. I wonder how Italy's doing, actually. Yeah, semblance of a spike, but Germany's doing okay. Germany's fairly disciplined about this sort of thing. But when it looks like you've got it all under control, you start getting people saying, that there is no virus. Why are we taking all these precautions? Which is sort of true. But, That's what people were saying back here as well. Yeah. So you have to keep the precautions that you had here. You need to keep going until this is really baselined. And there's only a couple of ways you can do that. You can have a very disciplined population. So ironically enough, Sweden is actually pretty much like that. They do. They have a lot of faith in their government. So the government said, no great lockdowns or anything, but, socially distance. And even at that, they're about 10 times worse than their neighbours. Or you do it the totalitarian way, which, for all of China's, human rights abuses and all that sort of thing, in terms of actually shutting down the virus, it looks like they did pretty much okay. And so let's come on to numbers for the world. So if we take a look at numbers for the world, we're up to about 1 million dead and 30 million cases. That's a 3% death rate just from there alone. It's probably a bit lower than that. It's 1 to 2. Seems to be about the sensible number. Actually, before I move on, let me briefly cover the mortality rate. You come across virtually any of the countries in Europe, and you will find that even though, so this is France we're looking at here, even though the cases have spiked, the deaths, not so much. All right, we're up to 150 a day, but, they're almost 500 per day when they were peaking. But, of course, it takes almost, these are cases. If you've got good detection, then it takes about a few weeks for these people, if they're going to die, for the virus to do what it's going to do. So with a lot of these places, I wonder whether it's just called UK. Yeah, it is. Excellent. So with the UK, it's going up. No, there's not really any increase in the deaths, you see. Now, I've heard that, if you take a look in more detail, it's mostly young people getting infected. That's still not good news. That means there's virus all over your country, which makes it hard to get rid of. It's lingering, cracks in dust and, freezers and all that sort of thing. It means that, the more virus you actually get into your country, the harder it's going to be to get rid of. And let's take a look. I think it's US. I think it's US. Okay, here we go. So this is United States, and they're steady at it's about 1,000 deaths per day, just short of. Which, again, in total, it's 200,000 dead now. These are different websites. The numbers are slightly different. It's almost certain all these numbers are lowballed. You take a look at the deaths compared to the deaths this time last year. All of these numbers come out at about, lowballing it by 30% or something. 50 to 30%. And that means that, this is a significant fraction of the deaths that America had in World War II. World War II was about just under 500,000 dead, I think. It was 400,000. So it's... And I could quite happily believe America isn't even halfway yet. The thing is that this virus is atypical. There are viral videos out there who, they're very bold and confident in claiming everything. They understand everything from the data. And it's just like the regular seasonal flu, and that's why it was bad in New York. But then you think about it, hang on, it's like, what? No. Then for all of the summer, where was it bad in America? Florida, Arizona, and California. The places where it's hottest is where it was worst. So this doesn't actually neatly tick all the boxes of anything that's gone before. This is atypical. So some of the bits they'll point to, like the death rates not being what they were earlier in the year. This is true enough, but that's what it was like with America as well. When America went crazy on its second spike, that's this one, I guess. This is total cases. Let's take a look at it. Daily cases. There we go. So when America went up like this, initially there was no real change in the deaths per day, but they sort of creep up later. Why would I say that I can quite happily believe that America and even the world is maybe not halfway yet? So at the moment, we're 1 million deaths. AIDS, for reference, I think has only killed. How many has AIDS killed? Is it 2 million or 20 million? I need the totals. Sorry about this. It looks like AIDS has killed about 1 million people, according to this. 25 million have the virus, and about 1 million people have died from AIDS. So this is already worse than AIDS in terms of death toll. And, well, I mean, we don't know if it gets bad in winter. This is another thing. These people saying it's a regular seasonal flu. Then why is it bad in India? You'd have thought that if it needs people to have cold, humid environments and be close together, then that's bad news for the temperate zones, but not for the tropics. So anyway, there's lots of stuff there that doesn't really fit very well. World cases, it really depends what happens in winter. But in terms of people being able to control the virus, I take my home country as a point of reference. So this is what the UK was like. It was sort of more or less under control. And of course, this is where all the virus conspiracy theory stuff cooks up. And what are we going to look at? We're going to look at the protests in London for this weekend, September the 19th, where, of course, there are everyone with their selfie stick out, videoing everyone else. Gathered in London, but the signs are just there's something else. Dundee resistance. Humanity wake up. COVID-19 deep state terrorism. Politicians corrupt puppets. Mainstream media is propaganda and brainwash. The pandemic is fake. The enslavement is real. And it's like when people are this detached from reality, stare jerk, control the narrative, ruin lives. It's like, how do they think this is controlling anyone? This doesn't stand even the most rudimentary of inspections. And of course we've got 5G people, swift justice for torturing, killing babies now. What? I mean, these people are batshit crazy, and there's enough of them to get a fairly reasonable protest there. And then you take a look at the Sun, and this is where you really do get the feeling that this isn't going to go away anytime soon. Scientists urge 2 weeks lockdown. I don't know whether any of this is true or not, but what I do know is what's in the comments. 2 weeks, then 2 more weeks, then 2 more weeks, and so it goes on and on. Well, do you not understand the nature of an infectious disease? I mean, just for the UK, right? Let's just take the UK alone. This is what about 1% infection looks like. There's about 50 million people in the UK-ish, 500,000 cases. So this is 1% infection of the population gave you 40,000 deaths, right? So if you do the linear extrapolation from there, you can get up to into the millions of dead in the UK if you just do the linear extrapolation from this. You know, likely numbers, you're probably going to end up in the, you might get to 100,000, 200,000, that sort of thing. Either way, I mean, this can get a lot worse, right? You know it can get a lot worse. I mean, America, ironically, this isn't bad in America. 200,000 isn't bad. This is infecting about 2% of the population in America, and you got 200,000 dead. You know, you can add a zero onto the end of this without even breaking a sweat. So, yeah, and what's our level of infectious diseases here? Anyway, as David Icke says many times, control people's perception and you control their behavior. And it's like, well, yes and no. You know, if the government says you need to breathe to keep living, are they controlling your behavior? I mean, you know, you're doing what the government said you have to do. The government says, you know, you got to eat and drink to keep living. Are the system controlling your behavior? Well, no, you need to breathe and eat and drink to, you know, these are basic metabolic functions. That is how diseases work. This is basic biochemistry. This has nothing to do with controlling people's perceptions. This is to do with the biochemistry of viruses. And this is where it gets really depressing. Kevin Talbot. In the UK, January 2018, 64,000 dead from flu in 1 month. 2020, 40k in 8 months. Why are they overreacting? It's almost as though they want to kill the economy on purpose. And it's like, what? I mean, first of all, right, no, I'm immediately going to push X to doubt on these numbers, which we'll take a look at in a second. But let's just see how deeply fact-checked he is by all of his compatriots here. Even by their official figures, which we know have been fudged, this is not an epidemic, let alone a pandemic. Complete hoax that doesn't go away until enough people stand up and say no. All a cover for the New World Order, which is basically one world totalitarian government. Which this guy says, this guy is correct. This guy gets thumbs up. This is one of the highest rated comments. But you're right. If you don't... Scientists. Yeah, right. So, here, someone actually pushes X to doubt. Good on you. And then immediately afterwards, unfortunately, too many programmed libtards who openly vouch for one world totalitarian government. Without them, this hoax would have been crushed long ago. Yeah, right. Okay. So let's actually check out the deaths from the UK from influenza. It's not just flu; it's everything like that. And you can get these. It turns out, if you just search for it. Basically, these are the official government statistics. They cover all manner of deaths, including. So what I've got here is these are the Crown statistics for underlying causes for influenza and pneumonia, and it's about 25,000 per year ish. That's for the year. That's not for a month. That's for the whole year. So our great fact checker here has doubled that for 1 month. So he's multiplied it by a factor of 20, the death rate. So he can downplay this. And this, bear in mind, is roughly a 1% infection of the UK. And when you've got enough people like that, this comes back to one of the earliest calculations I did, which is you need about 1 in 6 not to take it seriously, and you're kind of screwed. You can't stop the spread of the virus anymore. Well, not until you get to sort of herd immunity. But by that time, you have added a 0 to the deaths. And, there was some outrage at what happened in Australia. I think I touched on this in the last video, that some woman organizing an anti-vaxxer, not anti-vaxxer, anti-COVID protest like this was arrested in her home, and oh no, this is terrible. What the government is doing, and it's like, actually, you take a look at how Australia's doing. They managed to shut it down, and they got a second wave, which they shut down fairly efficiently as well. If that's what it takes, then your options are basically you accept that you can't control the virus, and the death toll that comes with it, or you have to entertain. Where's China again? Yeah, I mean, sure. I don't approve of really a lot that goes on in China, but in terms of virus control, if you use ring fence virus control, they did okay. At what cost? Well, now we can have a discussion, but ultimately, how many lives did it save? And they had some huge festival in Wuhan because they've basically gotten rid of the virus there. What's it worth? How much are you willing to sacrifice to save a few million lives? So there's an interesting question to think over. Anyway, so many thanks for watching. Sorry it's depressing news again. Drop a thumbs up if you found it informative, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.